Welcome everyone. This is the open source community meeting for Gardener, 16th October. We have two topics for today. We're going to have Ted Teng from SAP. He's going to share with us about the usage of gardenctl. That's going to be a shorter presentation than usually, but Ted, feel free to take your time. We have more than enough today. The second topic we are going to do today is we're going to talk about the provisioning of Gardener. So we have planned for today two very interesting updates or feedback sessions. So Christian is going to share with us a few slides about their experience so far. And we also planned for today to have a colleague from Mercedes-Benz, but unfortunately, yeah, that's not going to be possible because Herman is sick and he's not going to make it today. So unfortunately, we're going to have to postpone this one. And we also promised a get well slide. So Herman, if you watch the recording later, get well. And we really look forward to hearing from you next time. I think it's going to be a very interesting update for all of us. Yeah, so I think we're going to have today a bit more time for an open round. So I think the second piece will be very good if we also use the time to really talk about it a bit and think about what we could do to support the colleagues. So please take your time. And if you have other topics, I think today we would have time to talk about one more topic at least. So if you want to, even if you don't have slides or something, feel free to yeah, talk over something else. That's going to be possible. So with this, Ted, I'm going to stop the sharing and you can take over.
Cool. Yeah, today, this is Ted from the SI team. And today, well, I'd like to share some the gardener CTL tools and which we are using in the daily life. And as you know, the gardener CTL tools is our one of our tools to troubleshooting or also for the maintenance for our cluster. And before talk about the gardener CTL, I have a little bit mention about you may already know the gardener have provided 4 different roles. As you can see from the page, they have the admin role for this project, and the UAM role is for managing the user account, and another 2 roles. One is the operator roles, and the last one is the user role. And the gardener CTL tools at the beginning designed by the for the how to say the gardener admin user. So most often have the operating role. So also the gardener CTL tools will be dedicated for the operating roles, not able used by the end user. So currently we have a little bit reflecting for the garden CTL right now. So they can also able to use by the user role. To make it work, normally you will create a service account in your project. Here is my demo project. You can see my project name, and that's the service account I already create, and with the admin role. Or you can just click here to create your own kubeconfig file, and then you can download your kubeconfig file to your local, then set up for the garden CTL. In my case, if you can see here, that's my kubeconfig file for the user role, and this is my garden name. And yeah, here this is the alien name for my garden CTL. So, and then you can target the, oops. Yes, as you can see, currently I'm in my project, and then you can like the command to list. Yeah, and now you can see for in my demo project, I have 4 different 4 cluster. The shoot cluster, 3 have hibernated and 1 is active. So you can check from here. That's the one. And also for the user, the end user, they can just simply to export the kubeconfig file directly, and then they can operate as usual, like normal Kubernetes cluster. Sorry. Oh, sorry, not this one. I forgot to target the shoot. Okay. Yeah, take some, and after you list the shoot, you can target your cluster you want. If just use the command shoot. Yes, now you can get your shoot kubeconfig file, and then you can normally just export to your local environment, and then just like normal operation, you can get everything you want. Or you can also use our gardenctl tools and just get the same result. This is your user role. And then you can also you can also get the operation for the depends on the cloud you are using, and you can you can use the AWS command. My example, I'm using the AWS cloud provider, so you can also check the information, the description, the command followed by the AWS. Okay. And yes, and also you can using the most of the Kubernetes command follow with the gardenctl, like the logs something. Yeah, as you can see, it's also able to use by the user rule. And now we are currently still reflecting more of future and to suitable to use by the end of user. So in the future, user can use more feature as our operator role. And also they can troubleshooting their own cluster using our gardenctl. Yeah, I think that's all for the demo for today. So is there any question?
Okay, I'm also checking the chat. No questions in the chat. So if you have questions, you can also bring them up after this one.
I have one question.
Yes.
I'm not up to date about the features of the garden control. Is it possible to export the kubeconfig files of, for instance, the shoot clusters to a local directory, or of the seed clusters if they have the kubeconfig in the secret there? Is that a possibility? Or would that be a feasible feature?
It could be. Yeah, and also you can raise the ticket for the gardenctl. We can add in the future you want. Just try to add in the future you want.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, do we have more questions to Ted? One, two, three. Okay, thanks a lot, Ted. Thanks for the presentation. Christian, I think we can continue if you want to take over the sharing and get us going with the second topic for today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm afraid you have to make me co-host again. I had to switch computers because
Okay.
the other one was, I don't know.
Okay, give me just a second. Should work now.
Okay,
And co-host. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, you should see the slides now, right?
At least for me says started screen sharing, but I don't see yet slides.
Same here.
No?
Same.
Now
Yes.
Now it's here.
Better.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, then thanks for having us. So we are from FinLeap Connect. That's me and my team, basically. So there's Lutz here, and there's Alex, and Jan, and Caroline. They're all here in the Zoom call, and we set out to use Gardener or to evaluate Gardener for our upcoming renewal of our internal cloud platform. And this is like a bit of a brief story of how the past 2 weeks of evaluation went and what we found. And yeah, so maybe first where we come from. So we come from a single large Kubernetes cluster that we are currently running. So that's like the stats board here, where we have 4,500 pods in there, and yeah, lots of course memory, etc. And going forward with the company strategy and the products we're going to release and these kind of things, we intend to go into a multi-cluster Kubernetes business. And the question was, how do we basically operate the multi-cluster Kubernetes instances and all these different setups, etc., in a streamlined way? And we found Gardener to be quite the intriguing project for that. So that's basically where we want to go here. Being a financial service provider, we have like the struggle that we do not really can run on a public cloud provider just so. I mean, it's possible theoretically, but we have also some customers that prevent us from doing so right now. And we're fine with that, as it enables us to play around with all the bare metal stuff. So that's also quite nice. And basically, our stack is very, very similar to that of the metal stack folks. That's also used in the Finanzinformatik, as far as I know. And I think that's also where I first saw Gardener being mentioned in the KubeCon talks, and that's how I got into the project, essentially. So our idea here is, as a provider, to use Equinix Metal. It was formerly known as Packet. And the concept is that we wanted to run Garden on an existing private cloud Kubernetes cluster, if possible, and if not possible, then run the Garden base installation, or I think it's just called Garden, the core component to control everything else, on a Google Cloud cluster then. So that was the first step that we tried to evaluate here. And then the second goal was to run a seed cluster on Equinix Metal, and then from there deploy the shoots on Equinix Metal and proceed from there. So that's like the idea that we followed. And well, what worked was the Garden installation to the GKE cluster we had was so, as described in the Garden setup tooling. That was actually quite successful. I think Alex and Jan here, they can share some details about that if they want. They did it. And then also deploying shoots into GCP also worked quite fine. And we also found, and that is, I think, to you all here and to everybody who's maybe not here on the call, that there's a great and supportive community already behind Gardener. So that was quite nice to get all these answers to all these questions we had so far. So that is kind of what worked. And we then try to do the other things, like deploying to our private Kubernetes cluster that we had running with another hosting provider. So that's not a managed Kubernetes environment. And that is where we ran into some issues. So installing Garden to a non-public cloud provider is something that I think we were eventually partly successful with, but overall there were a lot of issues, and I would like to put it over to Jan in a second. I think in general what we can say is that the documentation we found is really detailed and really good, but we really felt that there should be something like we were always looking for an entry document, like what are the bits, how are they connected, and then exactly what is like the standard setup. And I think that is like the undertone here that we would like to put in place, maybe such a documentation effort together with the community, unless there already is some. So maybe Jan, you can talk a bit about the install stuff you did for the non-public cloud provider and where that failed.
Maybe muted.
He said he doesn't hear anything anymore. Okay, that's unfortunate.
Okay, let's.
It's working again. There we are.
Hello, everyone. I don't know what you said.
I said that you would talk about your experience with installing Garden
Yes.
via the Helm chart into the non-public cloud provider.
Okay, I hope my internet connection won't drop again. Hello, everyone. My name is Jan. I'm a colleague of Christian and had the fun to get started with Gardener on a private cloud provider, private cloud. I tried to install it via Garden Setup and ran into the problems mentioned here, that it's not a supported IaaS. And from there, we tried using the Helm charts. And after reading the docs I mentioned there in the slide, I was able to install the Garden base cluster along with the gardenlet. But from there, I was kind of stuck. The documentation was very detailed, but I wasn't sure where to find the exact information I needed to get started with installing the extension for an infrastructure provider like Packet. So just yesterday, I had help from the community getting started with all of that, and I managed to install the packet provider and all, but the packet provider itself is in a outdated state, so it's not working. But I got to the point where I installed the packet provider, could provide shooted seed specification, but then the provider didn't work. But at least I got to that with the help of the friendly community. But I think it's at least for me, it was kind of hard to understand how everything works together and how these extensions come into play. And I think that is something that needs improvement somehow to get people to understand how do I install extensions in the cluster. I found it in the advanced configuration section then, but somehow it was hard for me to find it. The packet provider will be updated, as at least what I've heard, and then we're good to go. That would be great. And in general, the documentation is really detailed, but somehow one example from getting started to the end, installing extensions would be nice at some point. Yeah, that's from my side.
Yeah. The bit that Jan mentioned about the packet provider being updated is something that we heard from the Equinix Metal folks, that our contacts there, they revealed that they have a DevRel team set up with Jason Didbarius and other folks involved, and that they are really committed to get the Gardener extension running. And I think so also in Q4. So I think they said that they wanted to get in contact with the Garden community to see where to attack the problem and where to update and what to update. So all in all, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Alex, to what Jan said.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so all in all, that was the experience so far. So the stuff that we got to work is really great. And so to us, the question was a bit, I mean, we made a lot of internal notes, but we basically are looking forward to collaborate and contribute. And the question is a bit like, how can we maybe jointly solve this, or where to put the documentation that we would have needed, and maybe if the question is whether there is an effort behind that. Is there anybody who's really responsible for the documentation that we could ask, like about the structure, where to put it? I guess that's currently the most interesting point for us.
Thanks, Christian. First, thanks for taking the time to summarize that and to give this overview of where actually you had very good experience and also where you see the room to improve it. And I think it's really great if you really can spend some energy to help fix that. That's really like the best that can happen. And I think we have also some colleagues here that actively contribute both to the development and to the docu of the project. So I would really like to then open now and ask also the colleagues to, of course, bring questions to what you're trying to do, because it sounds like a very interesting idea overall. So I'm sure we have questions towards like the thing that you're trying to achieve, but also to take the question about how can we support you with contributing and improving the docu so that it's a bit better for the people that find it later. So yeah, I would like to open the discussion now, and all the contributors are welcome to unmute and yeah, share their view on that.